Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeon's most premier station, Dusk Light Radio, hosted by yours truly, the brave yet bold, fortunate yet favorable and capriciously cautious Everett J. Blackwell. Perhaps you know of us Blackwells. We offered guided tours through the humble city, Old Blackwell, Cicerone, and Clue tours through all manner of hellscapes. We had a special offer on Humble City tours. Lose your shadow, get 50% off. Not everyone claimed that one, but Clue Blackwell seemed to be really keen on it. It was a slow year for Blackwell businesses. Grandpappy Mordecai Blackwell was pretty red-faced at the Blackwell Summit that year, contesting with Great Uncle Balthazar's multiversal social media What If, where you could see every other choice your alternate selves have made but never interact with, and great cousin Sinestra Blackwell's time dilation hellscape summer vacation, where every blink is an eternity. Literally, but you're conscious the whole time. 2 week stay maximum. She said most came out as husks afterwards, but refreshed. Kyle Blackwell also would bring his spines for brines, but nobody really understood why. Anyway, I'm Dusklight's main and most fabulous half-dead host. My job at this fine radio station is to bring you some of the most twisted, interesting, and downright bizarre tales that I and my wonderful many-legged runners collect from the far corners of Sturgeon and beyond. Some of them will make you laugh, some will make you cry, and some of you will want to try Vanta Black Chocolate. They say one bite is all it takes to send you into a world of taste undiscovered by most individuals, your very soul embracing the bitterness of the chocolate until Søren Kierkegaard himself would kneel before your cynicism and misery. Your body folding inwards at the bitter sensation until you become a singularity of darkness. No light escaping from you as the rest of creation is twisted and stretched like spaghetti string until it will join you in the center of all things. Jacko Blackwell presents Vanta Black Chocolate, when you must be the crushing weight of everything that the universe is responsible for. Not for ages under 12. It's time for our story for this evening. This is a special one, folks. Another tale from Sturgeon's archives, written and presented to you by Janitor Supremo T.J. Lee, with the main voice being provided by, you guessed it, Spirit Voices. Tortoises and Tarots is a tale in the first year of Sturgeon's archives, following a young woman on the famous Williams estate and her tortoise Malachi. What happens next is anyone's guess. Alongside the spaces in between and Demi's adventure, we will be providing these weekly. We hope you enjoy this latest offering, and if you want to show your support, please make sure to leave a comment, check out TJ's books, including the newly released NFC, and if you got anything left to spare, check out on the Patreon. Special thanks must be given first to Mandy Mo for rendering yours truly in the beauteous image you see when you look at our page, and to Sir Gorky for gracing you all with my spiritual beauty and the lovely background of this radio station. And lastly, our music is provided with permission by Crowd Chamber, Envato Elements, the Nobody YouTube channel, and our spooky sponsor, the Dark Somnium, with gracious thanks. If you enjoy these intros and want to see more, please ensure you've got notifications on and leave a comment for every video you encounter. With that, the sun has set and dusk has crawled into the studio once more. Whether you're working, prepping to sleep, or evading the formless void that will one day consume us all, Blackwell is here to soothe your ears and captivate your soul. Now, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The scene has been set and the light is on. It's time to walk towards it.
Prologue. The Williams family was quoted by the Sturgeon Nexus as being reclusive, eccentric, and unbelievably powerful in all they do. Perhaps misunderstood, definitely kept at arm's length. And it's hard to disagree with that statement. Every city has a powerfully rich and odd group sitting at the head of the table, usually vilified for their opulence and complete disconnect from the common man. While the Williams family was once seen in a more positive light, the adventurers, socialites, and tragic artists of their time, it had now faded, and what was left in its place was discontent. The day I was born, the paper reported that I made no sound as I entered the world, instead simply grasping for the card produced at the time of my birth. A card representing great change, the end of things, and the start of a new cycle. The world. My name is Elizabeth Sema Persephone Williams. And I am the girl who broke the cycle. Chapter 1. The Family Tradition. Tortoises are remarkable creatures. They largely outlive most humans 4 times over, never get stressed, and live their lives in a slow, methodical, and chilled manner. I think a lot of us in today's age aspire to be like that, even if it's not in our nature to be so. But with every species, there's an anomaly of sorts. One that breaks the mold and is able to do something nobody else can do. For us, that's Malachi. Malachi has been in our family since the late 1800s. He was discovered by my great-grandfather, Dr. Archibald Williams, a noted herpetologist still scouting out the New World during the Age of Exploration. He was brought back home courtesy of the British East India Trading Company in 1892, and he's been with us ever since, passed down through the family as a form of inheritance. To be more specific, Malachi is a Seychelles giant tortoise, a species that, until recently, was thought to be extinct. Some of you may have even heard of Jonathan, currently the oldest tortoise, at a staggering age of 188. Well, Malachi came from the same territory and time period, albeit with a far more unusual property about him. When his egg was found, Archibald wrote in his journal,
"The damn thing was black from head to toe, a few white spots punctuating around the base and cracks forming around the top, indicating it was due to hatch."
He had several photos of him standing dignified and proud with the little hatchling, an unremarkable baby tortoise, save for some strange pigmentation on the shell and a propensity to bob his head when he saw Archibald. It was a few months later that Archibald discovered the thing that made Malachi special, and ultimately, the focal point of my story. Malachi would sometimes retract into his shell for several hours and come out producing something in his mouth. It was a small card with remarkable detail on it, not unlike a tarot card.
"It's remarkable. The first time I saw such a thing, I assumed my assistant was playing a practical joke at my expense,"
Archibald wrote in his journal.
The juvenile had produced 3 cards over the course of several months. It would be some time until I knew this was to reflect my 2 young children at home, one of which was born while I was away. The first of these cards was not dissimilar to that of the Emperor. The latter, too, were similar to the Hanged Man and the High Priestess, so I'm told. A colleague of mine, whom was married to a gypsy, provided excellent insight into the meanings of such things. I am a man of science, but I must admit that there is an alluring charm to the supernatural that every man is curious by. This remarkable creature from a strange land producing such feats is but the tip of the iceberg.
He would continue to write about Malachi and his exploits as he got older, observing his diet. He has a particular enjoyment of sourdough bread and cinnamon buns, his docile behavior, and his breeding habits. When a new family member was born, a new card would pop up and he would catalog it, amassing a total of 15 by the time his journal concluded in his later years. Coincidentally, one for every member of his growing family.
Every time we pop a new Williams out, he brings us a new card. It's like clockwork. I've given up trying to understand what each one means. I'm sure it'll become obvious to the bearer in due course. But it truly does feel like Malachi is part of our family. A watcher for every successive generation.
He commented. It was obvious the admiration my great-grandfather had for Malachi. After all, he'd put so much of his life's work into finding him.
I feel as if Malachi is merely doing what is in his understanding to be his nature as a terrestrial being who would outlive us all. He's cataloging us,
Archibald remarked on one of his final entries in 1943.
He seems to know when a new member of the Williams family is born and chooses our fates there and then. In a way, I'm humbled. His card for me was the Emperor, the one who was a master of his craft. To him, at such a juvenile age, I must have appeared to be the ruler. But as I reach the end, I think he senses he will outlive us all, and is curious which one of us will help him realize his potential.
When Archibald passed, Malachi refused to eat for some time, pacing the grounds of our estate and looking up into the window that Archibald's study resided. If I didn't know any better, I'd have said he was heartbroken. He didn't seem to attach to anyone else that strongly, until I came along. My grandfather Percival inherited him, and was represented by the card of the Hanged Man. He would try to follow in his father's footsteps, but the grief of World War II and the suffering he endured as an active serviceman would eventually lead him to taking his life at the relatively young age of 38 in 1965. Then Malachi was passed to his elder sister, my Auntie Minerva, who was represented by the tower. She was a kind woman who sought to ensure that Malachi was well looked after during her time overseeing him. She was sadly killed when Flight 548 crashed over a field in 1972. And so it went over the decades, passed from member to member. There was a cousin who died during a parkour stunt, partially decapitating themselves in the process, and having the apropos card, the Fool. An auntie run down by an 18-wheeler who bore the card suggesting the Wheel of Fortune. And even one of my only close uncles, disappearing into thin air on his 44th birthday a few years ago. He possessed the card suggesting the Magician. You can see where this is going. For every card from the major arcana produced, it had a profound effect on that owner's life and, in a handful of cases, death. We kept it a secret and knew the outside world wouldn't understand. Great-grandfather Archibald's estate was inherited, and my ancestors each had a lump sum to keep them going, so we were free to do as we pleased. Years passed. Malachi grew older and reached maturity, eventually weighing a whopping 625 pounds as a fully grown adult, but remaining the gentlest giant you'll ever meet. When I was born in 2003, he would not leave my side if he could help it, watching over me carefully and trying, in his own way, to soothe me when I cried at night. I have so many photos of him and I as I grew up. Me feeding him his lunch, holding onto his shell for a hug, and even once riding him as his neck was craned up to look at me. I guess, in my own way, he was a best friend. I didn't realize that my family was dysfunctional until that realization of a tortoise being my best friend truly kicked in. That, and my father's insistence that I never socialized with other kids, stayed on the estate grounds and never bothered him when he was working, which was always. He was known for having a short fuse, and if he saw red, it wasn't pleasant. Appropriately, his card was the devil. He used to be a much happier man, pranking the elder residents of our family and gaining a reputation for being something as a hedonist as a youth. When he met my mother and she fell pregnant on the first date, that lifestyle came to a screeching halt, and he eternally resented it. He also made no secret that he wanted a son, saying, "If your mother wasn't an abject failure, you'd have gotten the successful chromosome. Instead, you're just a whore in waiting." My mother drank heavily and spent her days reminiscing over how she was once a somebody and that, despite what people said, was most certainly not over the hill. When she married into the family, Malachi produced an upside-down card for the star. Mom had been nothing remarkably popular, but she was a respected opera singer during her time before unexpectedly falling pregnant with me. She once slurred in a drunken tirade. I remember crying with Malachi that night. I was only 10, and I couldn't for the life of me understand why my mother was so callous, or why she cried when she saw my father out in the work shed until the late hours, always coming back in smelling of sulfur, with a malicious glint in his eye. I try not to think about those nights. When my 18th birthday came along last week, there was no fanfare or party with friends. Just a paltry cake my mother ordered off of a website and a simple card, neither side of my family bothering to attend. I'd say it surprised me, but that would be a bold-faced lie. My cousins were all married and living away from the family home. Grandparents had, of course, passed on, and as I mentioned previously, the one uncle I did have connections with disappeared 3 years ago. So it was just me. In their absence, they left a note advising me Malachi was now under my care and that they were going off on a trip, and that they didn't know when they were returning. I'd had an accident where I fell down the stairs a couple of weeks prior and fractured my leg, so I wasn't able to do too much. But thankfully, Malachi wasn't hard to care for, and he made the isolation that much easier. It was around this time that Malachi was showing his age. He'd gone blind in one eye, and was bumping into things as his depth perception began to fail him. I'd always make sure to stand in front and wear a perfume that he could easily detect. Tortoises have remarkable senses of smell, and he would grow to associate that perfume with me, bobbing his head slowly when he knew I was near. It was late, and I'd gone to go and feed him. I'd allocated his den to inside the house so I'd feel less alone, and when I turned on the lights, I noticed him shaking. His great feet looked like they'd topple over at any moment, and his head was inside his shell. "Hey, big guy, it's okay. I'm here." I sat next to him and rubbed his shell, soothing him until the shake stopped. When he popped his head out, a pair of cards were clutched in his jaw. Cards that were most certainly not a part of the major arcana, or any arcana set for that matter. The first showed a large storm. Thick black clouds punctuated by white flashes and a pair of furious eyes emblazoned in the background, as if surveying the ensuing chaos with absolute malice. Lightning bolts jutted out and small sharp hands protruded from the clouds, spindly arms leering down to grab at anything they could find as buildings below caught on fire, people screaming as rain hit their skin and melted their bones, babies being carried into the sky as mothers wept. Number 72. Pestilence was written across the bottom in the same font and style my family had come to know. I looked it over. The detail made me feel uncomfortable and faint as Malachi lowered his head, seemingly exhausted. I placed it on the side and looked at the other one as I heard a rumbling overhead. The second depicted the sun and the moon on either side of a red sky, both with realistic faces locked in an expression of absolute rage as their mouths opened wide to scream. From the sun came a band of angels, trumpets attached to their mouths like proboscis, and huge, bulging eyes mapped all over their bodies. The moon billowed forth great creatures not dissimilar to spiders with wings, huge mouths on their underbellies as they bore fangs and raced toward their opponents. Beneath this war were the onlookers, some with their arms raised to the sky in joy and others fleeing for their lives as a couple of stragglers were picked off by the creatures. One was pierced through the skull by an angel, their face ecstatic as their essence was mid-consumption. Another was being carried off and wrapped by the winged spiders. It was a scene of absolute carnage frozen in time. The title reading, Number 67, The Quell. What in the... I began, a flash of lightning and the thunder after jumping me out of my skin. I looked outside to see a storm from the distance, the sort where forked lightning was raging across the sky and rain was smashing the fields below. We lived on an estate that only had a few homes nearby, most of which were farmers. I could see the livestock and some of the field workers tending to the crops, rushing for shelter as the storm inched closer, a stray bolt nearly hitting a worker as he ducked for cover. What I saw next had me shut the curtains and curl up next to Malachi, thankful I deadbolted our main doors and that I wasn't alone, but utterly afraid for what was going to happen next. A bolt of lightning had lit up the sky as Malachi began to hide in his shell, and for just a moment I saw a pair of large eyes beam back at me, the size, structure, and even the pupils absolutely inhuman in nature. The clouds were undulating as they gained speed, small tendrils descending from the sky and rushing down to grab the livestock below. One of them even going into the windows of a neighboring house and pulling a screaming child out with great force. The mother, Mrs. Carter, screaming at the top of her lungs as this poor boy was dragged into the sky and past the clouds. I swear to God, for a moment, when the lightning flashed once again, I saw a smile ripple across the black sky. It crept closer, and I shut the curtains, nausea building in my stomach as I realized I could do nothing. Our family was used to keeping secrets, and I assume my family didn't want to be around for when this one came to pass. As I sat there, staring at the 2 tarot cards Malachi produced, his body retracted into his shell and the feeling of unease mounting, a horrific realization came over me. If the first came to pass, there was still another one to go, and Malachi was producing more.
You know, I've often wondered what kind of tarot card I would receive, though I think it's worth not knowing since other members of the Blackwell family, like Tabitha Blackwell, may find out as well, and then become more emboldened to expand their otherworldly horizons. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of our other transmissions. We're adding them regularly, and we'd love to have you as part of the Dusklight family by subscribing, hitting the bell of turtles, and leave a comment with stories you'd love for my many-legged runners to find. I want to thank all of our patrons for making this possible. If you want to sign up, it's as little as $1 a month, and you get exclusive content, early access videos and stories, updates, and more. But times are tough, and we will always be grateful for support no matter what form it comes in. Financial, spiritual, corporeal, maniacal, whatever you want. It really helps us out. Oh, and please stay along to the end of the video. TJ has a special little message for you. Dusklight gives thanks to our Sturgeon faithfuls Ashabel, Haley Clark, PRDDL12, Sabrina Alexander, Jason Webb, Laree W, and newest Sturgeon to town Casper Norin, Purple Crayon Eaters Amara, Pesky Opossum, Candyman Gloving, Max, Square, Vini Von Karma, Newman Borders, Death 31, Heather Cayley, our janitors Alex Nunez, Amy Sean, Scott, Arkham Cookie, Sabine Eclipse, and newest recruit Jimmy Ricardo, our Nightmare Detectives Adrian Rodriguez, Cop Buddy Ethan Nelson, and new recruits Fox Clifford and Gianni Di Lorena, our Void Walkers Professor Creepypasta, and Rat Squatch, and of course our ever-expanding Blackwell family, Jackal Blackwell, Clue Blackwell, Tabitha Blackwell, and Papa Kyle Blackwell. We thank you humbly for your patronage and look forward to seeing you bright and early for Dusklight orientation, Purple Crayons, and Existential Dread will be provided. And now, a little message from TJ. Hello everybody, I really hope you're enjoying this latest Dusklight offering, and for those of you not on the Patreon, I just want to drop in and let you know, first of all, I'm sorry that content has slowed down yet again. I have said it before, I'll say it again, the Dusklight is a passion project, so I kind of like to do stuff when I know it's of top quality and it's of interest, I've had other things pulling at me with wrestling, with writing the book, and other obligations. So, my apologies that there has been a bit of a downswing. I've also been waiting on voice lines for the spaces in between, for Tortoises and Tarots, for Demi, which I've now got. So I'm hoping to up the intake, but as much as I want to do a schedule, I'm kind of just going to upload good content when it's ready and when it's worth your time, because I'd rather do that than pad things out. Now, I do have some stories from Renee Rain and Jam Franz and some other authors that I really, really love and respect, so I'll put them up, but there might be a period where I put a lot up, and then it might go quiet again for a little bit. I'm not sure at the moment, but while things are in a transitional period, I just wanted to let you know what's up, because that's not good for YouTube channels, but like I've said from the beginning, I am grateful I got this far. I would rather spend this time working on good stuff for you guys, like Hotel Inertia, finishing that off, the NFC Season 2, yes, we are doing that, and some cool stuff on Dark Somnium. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I checked in. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. Thank you to everybody's kind words. I am really excited to see all of you with your copies of NFC out in the wild. Please make sure to let me know, whether it's in the comments or drop us a picture, whatever. I'm just very grateful to all of you. Thank you for understanding during this period. I know this isn't a very long video, but hey, it's some Sturgeon content. It's not been done before. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I'm going to throw it back to Everett now, and I'm going to make my purple crayon wife. Love you guys. Well, there you have it, folks. And one last time, listeners, close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, how cruel people can be, and how heavy your shoulders may feel with the weight of the world bearing down on them, Dusklight will always be here to lift the load and provide you with some respite. Drink some water, have some dino nuggies, watch a video about the history of medieval culture, and sleep on the cool side of the pillow with the window open and the stars twinkling down on you. Start and end each day with kindness in your heart. You matter, you are loved, and every day is another chance. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.